Welcome back to Sometimes Love Isn't Enough, the Parenting Through Challenges podcast. And I am your host, Angie Grant, and I'm just so grateful that you are here hanging out with me for this podcast. I find that it's a great way to provide some insights, some different ways to think about who we're being, the type of parent that we're being, how we're responding to our kids' behaviors, and why, right? Why do I have this podcast? Well, I I feel so strongly that collectively in humanity, the things that we're doing to raise the next generation, well, some of it's great. There are great things happening in the world right now. I also think that a lot of it isn't. Even in great parenting situations from the outside, I know because I'm one of them. I know that even with the best parenting, the best behavior management strategies, oftentimes we're still missing the mark. And I think that the mark that we're missing is that as parents, even when we have a tool belt full of tools, I know I did. I had a ridiculous amount of tools in my tool belt to handle behaviors. My goodness, I worked in behavior management for an autism clinic for 20 years. I all I knew were behavior management tools. And yet I used them blindly, right? And I that's probably a silly way to say that. I approached each behavior with a clear plan to assess the behavior, understand the behavior, and address the behavior to minimize it. But there's a really big, important thing that's missing in that whole equation. And it's the kid, right? It's our kids who, why in the heck are we managing their behaviors? Our kids don't need us to manage them. They need us to be stewards for their energy. Our kids need to provide a safe space for them to step in to who they are, not to who we want them to be, not to who we think they need to be, not to who we always hoped we had been. Our kids need us to create a space where they can feel loved and empowered and okay and safe to be who they are, whoever that is. I know in my heart that every single one of us, uh, as you're listening to this, this is true about you. It's true about your co-parent, whether or not you like them. It's true about your boss, your kids, even the kids that we don't like. It is true that we all were born with this beautiful capacity to love, to feel joy, to connect, to feel empowered over our life. But life gets in the way and conditioning gets in the way. So I think about this a lot, right? I think so much about that this soapbox that I'm on, that I talk about how things aren't going well. And maybe you're listening to this and thinking things are going okay in your home. Maybe the kids aren't screaming. Maybe you feel like you've got things under control pretty good. But I really encourage you to take a step back and ask yourself, is your parenting leaving your kids feeling empowered, feeling like it's safe to be their authentic self? Do your kids feel totally lovable and valued for who they are, not for how they behave, not for what they do, not for what kind of grades they get, but do they just feel valuable just because they exist? As parents, it's really easy to get so caught up in all the societal pressures. And when we as parents are feeling those pressures, we we can quickly and easily either default back to old parenting patterns, maybe the way that we were parented, or we can feel desperate and hopeless and feel like we need to do something big. Because I don't know, I I work I work in a field where I see kids every day, and kids' behaviors are getting harder. Kids' sensory needs are getting bigger. Kids are in diagnoses for things like autism and ADHD and anxiety. Those things are all on the rise right now. And I think that we as parents have a crucial role in helping to shift all of those numbers. And I'm not saying that you cause those things in your kids, but I think that energetically, our kids need us to be something different than perhaps parents needed to be 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 100 years ago. We need to be somebody different. And so there's something that's been on my mind quite a bit lately. I feel like I've come across it too many times, and I felt the need to share my perspective about punishment, spankings, yelling at our kids, whatever the go-to punishment is. Because I think in the moment it feels easy to react, and it's rewarding to us as parents, right? If our kid is misbehaving, maybe they're, climbing up on the bookshelf and we've told them what feels like 1,000 times not to do that. We get instant gratification when we yell at them and they cower and they get off the bookshelf and they stop doing the thing. It's instant gratification for us, and we feel like we solved the problem. But then 30 seconds later, then they're digging in the tub of flour in the kitchen, or they've put stickers all over your favorite dresser, or they're coloring on their baby sister, right? The yelling, the spanking, it seems to solve the problem in the moment, and it might help us feel a little better, like maybe we fixed a behavior problem, right? But I want to share with you my top. I was making a list. I'm up to 12. Maybe a few more will come out as I'm chatting, but I want to share my top 12 reasons not to spank our kids or yell at them or punish them otherwise. Because at the core of it, we as humans have needs. We all do. Our kids especially. Our kids come into this world having the same needs that we do and a way smaller skill set. I find it easy as a parent or a caregiver or a grandparent to assume, well, but I've heard them use those words before, so they have the ability to use them now. But that isn't always true. Even if our kids have huge vocabularies and have said eloquent things, that doesn't mean that in this moment right now, when maybe they're feeling a little frustrated or overwhelmed or whatever they might be feeling, they may not be able to access those words in this moment right here, right now. And that's okay. It happens to all of us. I mean, sometimes even when I'm recording here on my podcast and I know what I want to say, the words they just don't come. I have a little bit of discipline that I don't necessarily misbehave when the words don't come out, but for her kids, when they have a smaller skill set to pull from, and we know that when they're misbehaving, we perceive they're misbehaving, they're trying to tell us something. So, as I'm going through this list, I want you to think about examples that maybe you've seen in your kids, even if your kids are grown, or things that you've seen in your partner or other people in your life. Because although I'm talking about kids, these things apply to all humans. So, the first reason that I feel like it is so important to not punish our kids when they're misbehaving, to not spank them, to not yell at them, is because that act of us being the trusted adult, when we yell at our kids, when we spank our kids, it causes them to question their lovability. When we're using words that tell them that they are bad, or we're using our actions to tell them that they are bad, they are much more likely to question whether or not they are lovable for who they are. And we don't get to decide that for them. They get to decide. We only get to decide what actions we take, what words we say. We don't get to decide how they feel about it. But we do get to be more intentional in thinking about the consequences of our words or actions. So, first one, our kids are more likely to question their lovability when we use punishment. The second one, which is very much tied into that, the second reason that I feel so strongly about not using punishment is that it causes our kids to question their value. When we yell at our kids, it it has the power to cause them to question whether or not they're good enough just because they exist. It creates this space where they start wondering if they need to be somebody different, if they need to act a different way, if they need to do more to be valuable. But that just isn't true, right? Our kids are innately valuable just because they exist. But oftentimes in our punishment or our discipline strategies, we're causing them to question that. The third reason that I feel so strongly about not using punishment is that it puts our kids in a place where they question whether or not their emotions are safe or okay to be around us. I think about this often with my youngest granddaughter. She has big emotions, and we see it come out in her behaviors all the time. And when we tell her that isn't okay, or you can't, act like dot, 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 we're not teaching her what to do with her big emotions. Those emotions are still there, and they're just going to come out 30 seconds later in some other type of act because she still hasn't learned how to safely handle her emotions. And yeah, she's a toddler. I don't expect her to know how to do that, but when we're not doing our part to teach her how to be safe in her emotions, she's going to keep exploding. So, the fourth reason that I feel so strongly about not using punishments is that it puts our kids in a position where it's not really safe for them to be their authentic self because they're constantly trying to figure out how to please you or how to avoid pain. When our kids are putting on this mask, putting on this facade of being the good kid, because being the good kid helps them avoid the spankings. But perhaps they're really more of the exploratory kid or the curious kid or the trial and error kid, right? When we are using punishment to essentially get our kids to fit inside a box, we don't think about it that way, right? We think we're trying to stop a problematic behavior. But what we're really saying to our kids is, it's not okay to be you. Don't be your authentic self. I need you to be more like me. And if you're not, I'm going to punish you. The fifth reason that I feel so strongly about not using punishments is that it keeps our kids in a fight or flight mode most of the time. Whether or not they're in that like high heightened state of fight or flight, or maybe they're in more of a low grade state, but either way, when we use yelling, spanking, other types of punishments, we keep our kids in this fight or flight mode, and then we expect them to make better decisions when when they physiologically aren't even in a space where they can, because we can't be in fight or flight mode and make logical decisions at the same time. And oftentimes, for the kids who we're talking about, they're not even at a space where they can make logical decisions, but nonetheless, their capacity is we've taken it from them. All right, so my sixth reason why I just feel so strongly about not using punishments is it makes our kids feel powerless. When we are exerting control over our kids, that's more of a problem about our story about control than it is about them. And we're teaching them that even though they have this deep need to feel empowered, we see it happen with our toddlers and we see it happen again with our teenagers. This this drive in them. We see it in most kids. And it's more likely in some human design types than others. And there are other elements in our design that might put kids in a position where they're more likely to feel the need for power. But either way, when we as the parents or the caregivers are exerting our control over our kids, it teaches them that they are powerless, that what they feel and how they want to feel empowered over their own life, right? You think about it as toddlers. Kids just gain this cognitive skill set where they realize that they're separate. They realize that they have power over their own life and they start using the word no. And as parents, it triggers us. It pushes our buttons. It puts us in a place where we say, oh no, you're not in charge here. I'm the adult. And what happens for our kids, right? It perpetuates that vicious cycle, right? We're in that position where we want to regain power over our kids because we think, oh no, you're the toddler, you're not in charge. But that's just us playing out our own story when maybe when we were younger, we were told that we weren't in charge. Let's shift the story on its head. All right. So, reason number 7 for not spanking our kids, not yelling at our kids, is that it causes our kids to make decisions based on people pleasing. I don't know about you, but I am a recovering people pleaser. I've spent most of my life trying to quickly navigate the social world to figure out what can I say, what can I do, how can I be to make sure everybody's happy. There are parts of I now know this. I didn't know this before, but I now know that there are parts of my human design that make me more likely to be a people pleaser. And when I'm people pleasing, I'm not being authentic to myself. I'm not making decisions that are right for me. I'm making decisions that keep everybody else happy because I feel better when everybody else is happy because then there's no ripple in the tide, right? All is well, and I can maintain peace. Peace is one of my core values. And so by when we teach our kids through punishment that you need to make decisions that make me happy, not what makes you happy, right? We're training little people pleasers, and it's just not a great place to be. I know so many adults who use similar terms, right? A recovering people pleaser, but it's not a place, it's not good for us. It's not aligned with who I am. I am not on this planet to figure out how to constantly navigate how to make everybody else happy because guess what? I don't own anybody else's happiness except my own. So let's break that cycle for our kids. All right. Reason number 8 to not spank, yell, punish our kids is that it robs them of their courage. When our kids are exploring and experimenting and trying to be brave, and maybe they make a decision that doesn't jive with the way you think kids should be behaving, we're telling them, stop being so brave. You need to conform. So punishment robs our kids of their courage. Number 9, it the the next reason why I feel strongly about not using punishments with our kids is it causes them to lose trust in what they know is right for them. So, through the lens of human design, one of the first things to get us back to baseline, if you're an adult and you're new to human design, one of the first things that we do is learn about our strategy and authority. And here's the reason because most of us have been conditioned so far away from who we truly are. Most of us have been conditioned to not even understand what our body is trying to tell us about what's right for us. And so, step 1 with human design is getting back into your body by using strategy and authority. Well, kids, they're just born with their strategy and authority. They're born with this inner knowing. They're born with whatever their strategy is, right? And as adults, when we're using punishment, we're teaching them, don't listen to yourself. Don't trust yourself. You don't know what's right for you. I know what's right for you. And well, yes, when it comes to safety and our kids when they're younger, there are certainly things that we know that are right for them that they don't know yet. Absolutely. I don't disagree with that at all, right? I'm not delusional. However, our kids from a very, very, very young age, I mean, I see this with kids around a year old, know what they want and they know what feels good to them. And then we quickly, as adults, start to teach them, oh, but don't you want to try this one? Or isn't this one better? Or, ooh, I like this one. I bet you'll like this one, right? We quickly start to teach our kids to not trust their own inner knowing and instead look for outside validation of what's right for them. And with punishment, we strengthen that, right? We teach them that, yeah, maybe you heard what was right for you. Maybe you felt that, but I didn't like that, so I'm going to punish you. So don't do that again, right? We teach our kids to diminish, squash, cover up that inner knowing that is innate in all of us. All right. Reason number 10 why I strongly discourage punishments is that, I mean, this is kind of an obvious one, but it teaches our kids that trusted people hurt me. And how do we think that that translates into adulthood? There are so many adults that have issues with trust, issues with relationships, issues with connecting with other people and trusting them. But if we learn from a very young age that people who we trust, people who say they love us, they hurt us, they yell at us, they make us feel bad about ourselves, they make us question if it's safe or okay to be who we are. Their words cause us to question whether or not we're lovable or valuable, right? It has an impact, not only on our kids, but who they grow into be as adults. Reason number 11 is that it teaches our kids not to listen to their body and instead use their mind to figure out how to avoid the punishment. But again, I said this before, that human design teaches us that, well, I feel confident just flat out saying that no design is designed to make decisions from their head. There's a type called a mental projector, but mental projectors are designed to talk it out. They're still also not designed to make decisions from their head. There is no design, at least as far as I understand human design, there's no design that is designed to make decisions from their head. Yet that's what we teach our kids to do. Use your mind to figure it out and don't listen to your body, right? What your body is doing is wrong or bad or not what I want you to do. And so you need to use your mind to figure out how to avoid the punishment, how to avoid upsetting me, how to avoid getting yelled at or spanked. But that isn't how our kids are designed at all. They're designed to listen to their bodies. And then last but not least is the number 12 reason why I strongly discourage using any kinds of punishments is that I've never seen a parenting book or heard a parenting expert, at least in the last 10 years, that recommends using punishments. There are all kinds of different parenting approaches out there. I have developed my own that I share with my clients, which is all about tapping into your energy, understanding your kids' energetic needs, and really looking at our kids through the lens of mistaken motivations. And nothing about anything that I teach is, and if they do X, Y, or Z, give them a timeout. Or if they do X, Y, or Z, make sure you spank them, right? Like that it just isn't recommended for the reasons that I listed here and so many more that I didn't even think of as I was brainstorming a few reasons to not use punishment with your kids. So I would love to hear your thoughts about this one. It's been on my mind and my heart a lot lately about why I feel so strongly that we have to parent our kids differently. We have to break these cycles because old parenting strategies, they aren't just not recommended. They have a huge impact on who we are today as adults. I don't know the childhood stories of the people in my circles that I surround myself with, but I am surrounded with so many people who are in this personal development space, and we all hold on to these stories about questioning our value, questioning our lovability, questioning whether or not it's safe, our emotions are safe, whether or not we can trust ourselves, that we're so conditioned. And I don't know about you, but as a parent, as a grandparent, I don't want to have any part in helping our future generations to create a story about themselves that is anything less than how incredibly freaking magnificent our kids are. Our kids, I love the quote from Dr. Karen Parker, but she says, "You are a once in a lifetime cosmic event." And I feel that to my core, that our kids are perfect. Sometimes they communicate to you that they have some unmet needs and it comes out in ugly ways, and that's okay. It gives us a chance to pause, to be curious about what they're trying to communicate, and to teach them, not to punish them. Punishment teaches nothing other than to shut ourselves down, to deny who we are. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. And when you're ready to figure out how to actually start parenting differently, book a connection clarity call. I would love to help you through your parenting journey to really shift the way that we do things for our kids.